war had always been a loud thing. Explosions, comms chatter, the hum of energy shields, all of it filled the void with a kind of chaos that almost felt alive. But over the skies of the Epsilon Verge, the sound of war was something else entirely. It was a scream. The Allied fleet, humans, Virex, and the insectoid Thren had been fighting for 19 hours straight. The alien invaders, the Dravik hegemony, were relentless. Their ships darkened the stars, wave after wave crashing against what was left of the defensive line. Admiral Callan's voice shook through the human flagship's bridge. "We can't hold another hour. We're down to 30% capacity." On the tactical map, red icons spread like blood in water. The Dravik weren't just winning, they were dismantling the defense piece by piece. Allied destroyers were exploding faster than orders could be given. Whole Thren cruisers went up in silent blossoms of fire. Then, without warning, a ripple of static cut across every comm channel. Allied and Dravik both. The sound was deep, resonant, almost like the universe itself clearing its throat. The Dravik fleet commander's voice rose in confusion over intercepted chatter. Unidentified warp signature detected. Sector 7. Impossible mass reading. The rest was drowned out by a flash. Out of the void, a shadow emerged. Long, angular, and black as the abyss between stars. Its hull seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. There were no identification lights, no visible thrusters, just a slow, inevitable glide. The USS Blackstar had arrived. On the bridge of the human flagship, every officer froze. The Blackstar was a whisper in training manuals, an old war myth older than the Dravik conflict itself. A ship so dangerous that it had been locked away, buried in deep dock quarantine under 14 layers of command clearance. The official record called it mothballed. The truth was simpler: humanity feared what it had built. The first shot didn't look like a weapon at all. It was a single pulse of distortion, as if space itself rippled under invisible hands. The Dravik dreadnought at the front of their formation simply vanished. One heartbeat it was there, shields blazing. The next, there was only a boiling sphere of nothingness, collapsing inward with a silent flash. "God in heaven," whispered Commander Yates on the Allied bridge. That was from extreme range. They didn't even lock weapons. The Dravik responded instantly, redirecting a third of their fleet toward the Blackstar. Thousands of warheads and energy beams lit the dark. But when they hit the ship's shields, they bent. Literally bent, like light through water. Weapons fire skated harmlessly off, warping away into the void. Then the Blackstar began to move. No acceleration burn. No engine flare. It simply shifted from one point to another, blinking through space in bursts that left after images in the mind. Wherever it appeared, enemy ships died. A swarm of autonomous drones unfolded from its belly, each no larger than a fighter craft, but armed with singularity charges capable of consuming a cruiser in seconds. Admiral Callan could only watch as the Dravik formation fell apart. The Blackstar didn't fight like any ship before it. There was no exchange of fire, no trading of blows, only execution. The warship's AI calculated trajectories with surgical cruelty, always choosing the targets whose destruction would collapse the enemy's command structure fastest. One Dravik carrier tried to flee into warp. The Blackstar pursued without changing orientation, somehow matching the carrier's jump corridor and reappearing ahead of it. A single beam lanced out, cutting the massive vessel neatly in two. Both halves drifted silently, venting debris like blood into the black. By the 6th minute of combat, half the Dravik fleet was gone. By the 10th, the rest had broken formation, fleeing in all directions. But fleeing from the Blackstar was like trying to outrun nightfall. It hunted without hesitation, erasing ships from the edge of sensors before their crews even knew it was there. And then, silence. The Epsilon Verge was empty save for Allied wreckage and the Blackstar itself. The human flagship hailed it, a rare honor code blinking on encrypted channels. No response. The ship simply hovered there, massive and motionless, as if deciding whether its work was finished. On the Dravik homeworld, panic spread faster than truth. Intercepted transmissions described a planet killer, a human godship that could not be stopped. Commanders ordered retreats from 3 entire star systems. Civilian evacuation fleets choked the skies. But among the human command, there was no celebration, only unease. They knew the Blackstar's history. They knew what it had been built for. The ship wasn't just a weapon, it was a warning carved into steel. Admiral Callan finally broke the silence on the bridge. "Get us the hell out of here. Leave it be." As the Allied fleet limped away, the Blackstar remained alone in the void. Lights along its spine pulsed faintly, like the breathing of some colossal predator. For a moment, anyone looking could imagine it was listening. Then, with no flash and no sound, it was simply gone. In the weeks that followed, the war changed. The Dravik withdrew from every contested sector. No new attacks came. Officially, the Blackstar was never mentioned in human reports, and the footage was sealed under top security classification. Unofficially, soldiers whispered. They told each other the ship was still out there, moving silently through deep space, waiting for the moment it was needed again. The Dravik learned a different lesson. In their language, Blackstar became a curse, a word for inevitable death. Their fleets refused to approach human space again, even in overwhelming numbers. Humanity never confirmed nor denied the ship's existence. That was the point. Because the Blackstar wasn't just a weapon of war. It was a promise. A promise that if Earth entered the fight would not last long. And when the Blackstar came, nothing survived its fury. The war had been going for 12 years. Not the kind of war where borders shifted and treaties were signed. This was the kind of war where whole planets went dark. Where a star system could be erased from the star charts overnight. Where surrender wasn't mercy, it was slavery. The Dravik hegemony had burned its way across the Orion Arm, and Earth had been just another light on their conquest map. Humanity fought back harder than they expected, but in time, the years wore the fleets down. Shipyards were rubble, colonies cut off and starved. The war had reached a point where even victory felt like losing slower. It was in this hopeless state that the last command was given. Beneath the cold surface of Luna, buried under layers of blast shielding and security fields, there was a hangar that had been silent for decades. Its walls were lined with weapons long outlawed under the Orion Accords. And in the center of it, resting in a cradle of alloy beams, slept a warship that was not supposed to exist anymore. The USS Blackstar. It was older than most of the officers still alive. A relic from an era before the Accords, before the rules that said there were limits to how a war could be fought. But the Blackstar had never obeyed limits. That was why it had been sealed away, locked under command authority that required unanimous approval from the Terran High Council. For 40 years, no one had dared to give that approval. Until now. The hangar's blast doors peeled back like the jaws of some ancient beast. Lights flickered to life along the Blackstar's spine, chasing away decades of dust. The ship's AI, Oblivion, came online with a voice like rolling thunder through the control decks. Last command verified. Protocol Epsilon is in effect. All constraints removed. It was the kind of voice that didn't sound like it was asking for orders, it was remembering them. When the Blackstar lifted from its cradle, there was no ceremony. No speeches. Just a handful of grim-faced engineers watching something they wished had stayed asleep. It rose into the black sky, cloaked in a field that bent starlight around it until even Luna's surface lights couldn't find it. And then, without a flash, it was gone. The Dravik flagship Vorith Prime was leading an assault against Sigma-17 when the Blackstar appeared. No warning. No warp signature. It was just there. The Dravik fleet detected the mass reading first, impossibly dense for a single ship, like a fragment of a collapsed star. Their commander barked orders to engage, confident that no human vessel could threaten his dreadnought. That confidence lasted exactly 3 seconds. The Blackstar's first shot wasn't a missile, beam, or torpedo. It was a gravitational shear, a tear in space that twisted the Vorith Prime in half without even touching its hull. One moment, the dreadnought was a fortress of armor and shields. The next, its midsection collapsed into itself like paper set on fire. No escape pods launched. No distress beacons pulsed. It was just gone. The surrounding Dravik cruisers tried to swarm the intruder. The Blackstar's drones, matte black spheres bristling with hidden weaponry, unfolded from its flanks and moved like living things. Each one was a surgical blade in the dark, detonating with pinpoint precision against the most vital points of enemy ships. One drone erased a carrier's reactor. Another sliced through a battleship's bridge with a beam thinner than a human arm. Within 7 minutes, Sigma 17's skies were empty of Dravik ships. The Blackstar didn't linger. It jumped again, warping straight into the heart of another battle zone. And then another. And another. Everywhere it appeared, the same thing happened: no survivors, no debris worth salvaging. It left nothing behind but ghost signals on enemy comms, screams, static, and the word Blackstar. By the 4th day, entire Dravik fleets refused to engage. They abandoned sectors without firing a shot, their commanders terrified of the single ship that hunted them. But it wasn't fear of losing. It was fear of being erased. Because the Blackstar's mission was not to win battles. It was to end the war. And ending the war meant leaving nothing of the enemy alive. In the War Council chambers on Earth, there were murmurs of unease. Some argued that the Blackstar had gone too far, that it was killing not just soldiers, but anyone who stood in its path. But the last command had no clause for mercy. The Council had unleashed the ship knowing exactly what that meant. Admiral Duval, who had authorized the launch, spoke only once during the debates. "If we stop it now, we lose everything. The Dravik will rebuild, and they will not forgive us. Let the Blackstar finish the job. Then it can go back to sleep forever." By the 9th day, Dravik resistance collapsed. The Blackstar penetrated deep into their home systems, destroying shipyards, supply stations, and planetary defense grids. One by one, their core worlds fell silent. Intercepted transmissions spoke of evacuations, not to regroup, but to flee beyond known space. On the 12th day, the Blackstar entered orbit above Dravik Prime itself. The planet's defense grid fired everything it had. Thousands of plasma bolts and hypervelocity rounds streaked toward the warship. None reached it. The Blackstar's shield shimmered once, like the skin of a deep-sea predator brushing off smaller creatures. And then the ship fired. It didn't target the capital, or the military bases, or even the spaceports. It targeted the planet's sun. The gravitational shear it unleashed didn't destroy the star, not entirely. It just destabilized it enough that within months, Dravik Prime would become uninhabitable. There would be no need to fight the survivors. The planet itself would kill them. It was a cold, calculated cruelty. And it worked. The war ended without a treaty, without a surrender, without a peace conference. It ended in silence. The Dravik vanished from human space. The few ships that escaped fled into the void, never to be seen again. No official record said how many billions had died. The Blackstar returned to Luna without a word. It lowered itself back into its cradle. Its lights went out, one by one, until the ship was just another shadow in the dark. In the hangar control room, the final log entry was recorded. Last command complete. Protocol Epsilon terminated. Vessel entering indefinite standby. The engineers sealed the doors again. The Blackstar never spoke, never moved, never acknowledged what it had done. But every officer in the Terran fleet knew one thing: if it was ever awakened again, it would not be for negotiation. Because the Blackstar was not built to win wars. It was built to erase enemies from history. And the last command had proved that once it woke, nothing survived its fury. The Dravik had studied humanity for decades before the first shot of the war was ever fired. They catalogued our technology, analyzed our fleet strength, dissected our tactics. When the war came, they thought they knew exactly what we were capable of. They were wrong. At first, the conflict went exactly as the Dravik had planned. Their fleet swept into human space with overwhelming numbers, shattering defense lines in every sector. They mocked our outdated cruisers and slow sublight drives. Entire human colonies fell within weeks. But there was one thing they could not understand. One ship. No matter how desperate the fighting became, Earth kept a single vessel hidden. It never joined a battle. Never appeared on the star charts. Never left its classified docking cradle. The Dravik took this as a sign of weakness, a pitiful relic we were too afraid to use. That ship was the USS Blackstar. And the truth was, we weren't afraid the Blackstar would fail. We were afraid it would succeed. By the fourth year of the war, the Terran fleet was shattered. Our outer colonies were gone. Refugees choked the skies above Earth itself. The Dravik prepared their final offensive, a massive fleet bound for the Sol system to end humanity forever. That was when the Blackstar's hangar doors opened. It left Luna's surface without ceremony, without escort, without fanfare. To most humans, its existence was still a rumor. The few who saw it depart said it was like watching a shadow peel away from the night and take flight. The Dravik fleet entered the Sol system confident of an easy victory. Their forward scouts reported no sign of significant resistance. Then, at the edge of Neptune's orbit, something appeared on their long-range sensors. It wasn't broadcasting an identification code. It wasn't moving on any known drive signature. It simply was. The Dravik flagship sensors officer adjusted the feed, thinking it was an error. The object's hull reflected almost no light. Its mass readings were absurd. Far too large for a single ship. Then the object moved. No acceleration curve, no engine flare. One instant it was there, the next it was tens of thousands of kilometers closer. And still gaining. The first to die was the lead destroyer formation. They didn't even realize they were under attack until their ships began vanishing one by one. Not exploding, vanishing. The Blackstar's weapons weren't traditional projectiles or energy beams. They were distortions in reality itself. Space around each target seemed to fold inward, crushing the ship into nothing. Panic rippled through the Dravik fleet. They opened fire with everything: missiles, plasma cannons, railguns. The void lit up with streaks of lethal energy. Not one of them touched the Blackstar. Its shields bent space like water, slipping every shot into harmless arcs. Then the Blackstar's drones deployed. They emerged in a silent swarm, hundreds of black spheres bristling with unseen weapons. Each one moved with an intelligence of its own, weaving through enemy formations. The Dravik tried to track them, but the drones shifted between real space and something else, a shimmer, a blur, and then a ship would die. The Dravik fleet attempted to retreat, but the Blackstar did not allow it. One cruiser fled at maximum warp. The Blackstar jumped into its path before the vessel had crossed a single light hour. Its main cannon fired once, and the cruiser's hull split open like brittle glass. A carrier group tried to scatter, splitting in 12 directions. The Blackstar split its drones evenly, hunting them all at once. Minutes later, nothing was left but drifting debris. What unnerved the Dravik most was not just the killing efficiency. It was the silence. The Blackstar never broadcast threats, never sent demands, never even acknowledged incoming hails. There were no declarations of war, no ultimatums, no offers of mercy. Only death. Within hours, the Sol system was clear of Dravik ships. The Blackstar didn't stop. It followed the fleeing survivors into deep space, cutting them down one by one. By the time the Dravik fleet commander understood the truth, it was too late. The Blackstar wasn't a defensive weapon. It wasn't protecting Earth. It was hunting. The next weeks became a nightmare for the Dravik. Reports came from across the front: outposts vanishing, supply lines going dark, fleet patrols failing to return. Surveillance drones recorded only brief, flickering images, a black shape gliding through the void, impossible to track, impossible to stop. Even in the Dravik core systems, nowhere was safe. The Blackstar would appear without warning, erase its target, and disappear before reinforcements could arrive. In desperation, the Dravik assembled their greatest armada, more than 2,000 warships, fortified with planetary defense cannons and orbital shield platforms. The Blackstar arrived alone. The battle lasted less than an hour. Dravik commanders later described it in intercepted comms as fighting the dark itself. The Blackstar moved through the armada like a blade through fog, cutting without resistance. Planetary shields collapsed under focused gravitic pressure. Orbital platforms shattered in silent implosions. When it was over, the Blackstar did not bombard the planet. Instead, it transmitted a single signal not to the Dravik, but to us. It was 2 words, carried over encrypted human military channels. Threat removed. The war ended not with a treaty, but with an absence. The Dravik stopped attacking, stopped broadcasting, stopped existing in human space. Whatever remained of them fled beyond the edge of known territory. Humanity never pursued. We didn't need to. The Blackstar had made its point. To this day, no one outside the highest command tiers knows exactly what the Blackstar is. Its true mass, its power source, the nature of its weapons, all classified beyond clearance. Some say it was built with alien tech from before humanity had even left its own solar system. Others say it's not entirely a ship at all, but something older, something that lets us think we built it. Whatever the truth, the Dravik learned the same lesson we already knew. When Earth sends the Blackstar, it is not sending a warship. It is sending the end.